From KPRC Local 2, this is Beyond the Headlines.
Good morning, I'm Kim Davis. Welcome to Beyond the Headlines. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers and to all of you who have mothered someone. We'll introduce you to some special mothers, but first, let's talk business. Last week it became official, Continental Airlines is merging with United to form the world's largest airline. Here's what we know about the deal. It's worth about $3+ billion. Continental's corporate headquarters will move to United's hometown of Chicago, but the biggest hub will be Houston, and the name of the new parent company will be United Continental Holdings Incorporated. So, what will this mean for Houston, and what are the city leaders doing to make sure other companies don't follow suit? The Greater Houston Partnership focuses on economic development, among other things. Patrick Oxford chairs the board of the partnership and joins me this morning to talk about what is next. Good morning, and thank you so much for being here.
Kim, thank you for having me.
So you guys have been very busy working on NASA and now Continental. You know, I know we've talked a lot. We've seen a lot of stories over the past few weeks about what this will mean for Houston in terms of jobs, but I also wonder, even broader than just the Continental deal, what does it mean for Houston and the business community when one of the major players says, I'm going to move?
You know, actually, our business community is still quite vibrant. Most of us downtown are concerned about the short-term impact downtown of loss of jobs at Continental. That's really where our focus is in terms of our angst and in terms of whatever type of, I'm calling, clawback activities we're currently in to get Continental to leave a lot of those operational headquarters people here. In terms of impact, I think it's, as the mayor calls it, I think it's just a nick in our pride to lose our hometown airline. Looking at the number of jobs we're gaining, Cisco just added 2,800 jobs last week, announced they were going to. We have a very healthy growth. The city's well regarded as a destination for companies. I don't see a great threat to us other than, as I mentioned, the pride. And if you couple that candidly with what I'm calling the attack on NASA, or at least the deep space program out at Johnson Space Center, and of course the BAE losses up in Sealy, you know, it's we're not used to that.
Right.
We're not used to jobs leaving us, so there's some angst there, but I don't think any serious damage long term.
Well, a lot of people don't understand really what goes in place and the role of companies or entities like the partnership, because there are ongoing efforts to make sure that there's, you know, regional prosperity from economic development, and that people are actually, companies are coming to town as opposed to going away.
Yeah,
and so let's talk about what some of those efforts involve.
Yeah, well, first of all, the Greater Houston Partnership really has two businesses. It's the old Chamber of Commerce. Everybody has a Chamber of Commerce in their hometown. And the Greater Houston Partnership is sort of that for this region. We've had a Chamber of Commerce for 140 years in Houston, and they've always been very heavily involved not only in business development, what I call recruiting businesses, but in policy support that gives us an underlying culture, an underlying business environment. For example, they were very much involved, our predecessors, in getting the ship channel here long ago, Texas Medical Center, working with Lyndon Johnson on NASA. So we get engaged in sort of longer term efforts as well. Most of that is policy. You know, good policy is good for business. And I'm talking about in education,
right,
talking about in mobility, talking about quality of life. So before I answer your specific question about economic development, I want us all to focus on, we've got to have a good underlying cultural, economic foundation here among the citizens, and the partnership spends a lot of time on that.
Do you think we're moving in the right direction? You feel like there's growth in that area?
I do. I think we're moving in the right direction because Houston is so unique. We're going to require some attention. You know, Houston is such a diverse, vibrant economy. I would say the Houston of today is the face of America tomorrow in terms of the diverse groups here. We can do better in terms of reaching out and aligning the various interests here to work together on these top issues that I mentioned, education, mobility, quality of life. But I think we're doing pretty well.
Well, one of the things that was interesting when I came back to Houston, I guess about 7 years ago, I worked for the Super Bowl and got a chance to work with the partnership. And one of the things that we worked on together was using the Super Bowl as a platform to really sell Houston.
Correct.
To tell people, you know, and we work with the business community around the country. And so we talked about some of the great things that Houston had that most people outside didn't know, because we were kind of overcoming some, you know, the Enron and Allison and some of those sorts of images. And so it was interesting to see that work in place.
Well, you did a great job on that, and that's a great example of the kind of thing that the economic development component of the partnership does. We went out, we asked Houston business to fund a program called Opportunity Houston, and 180 of them contributed for us to raise $32 million, which we're spending about $4 million a year just on those public relations things, on contacts of companies that are moving, on incentives and so forth of those companies. I want to emphasize too, of course, that the city and the county are great partners of ours.
Right.
I mean, the city invests with us. They give us a certain amount of money in this, which goes with our Opportunity Houston money. The county invests as well. So we're all partners together trying to make our economy even more vibrant.
And I know another big group that worked really closely with that whole process is also the Port of Houston, because they were also involved in trying to make sure that people know that Houston's a great place to be.
It is. You know, our port is the largest port in the United States, and by virtue of exports that go out. And it's one of our crown jewels. We have to protect it. There's always issues like the Panama Canal being widened, and the ships will be bigger, and how do we get them up the ship channel? And there's not only work just economically, but there's a big political component as well to make sure we get our share of federal and state dollars.
So Houston's doing okay. You know, we're a little bruised by Continental, but there are a lot of efforts in place to make sure that we don't see any of our other major companies leaving.
As you well know, this is a great city, great future. I'm very happy where we are. I'm disappointed on this continent. We haven't given up everything on this Continental thing. A little disappointed, but we're not through yet on it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Patrick, for coming in.
I'm delighted.
I'm sure we'll talk again in the future, because during these times we always want to know what's happening when it comes to development in our city.
I'd be honored to visit again.
All right. Up next, we'll introduce you to some very special mothers as we celebrate Mother's Day. We'll be right back.